So we're here because you all have told us, and we know that raising capital and finding loans and whatever kind of capital that might be for you is difficult, hard to find, hard to get. And it's overwhelming for a lot of folks, right? But I would argue that so is starting and managing a business, right? That to me is incredibly overwhelming. I would have absolutely no idea where to begin, how to move forward, and would probably be pretty stifled by my anxiety with that. So I just want to tell you that you might feel the same way about me and my role in my job and all of the grants that I have applied for or managed. But I think about it a little bit differently because I have the experience and I have the right tools and the right mindset, right? So my point is just that each one of you absolutely has the tools and the mindset and what it takes to submit a successful grant application. It's really about just sitting down and understanding and preparing yourself and being organized. And I don't know if you have noticed this yet, but I might have gone a little overboard on the organizing theme for this presentation, right? So I think that the most important piece here is that just from the Hello Alice perspective, there are over 3,000 other business owners that serve as proof of this concept, that it absolutely made it through the grant application process. And I just want you to know that we're here to help because you can do it too. In our sort of organization wheel, we're going to start at, do I meet the eligibility criteria? I know it's a very, maybe it seems like an obvious question, but sometimes it's absolutely worth asking. Before you even begin, you're looking at a grant application that could be 20, 30, 40 pages long. Before you overwhelm yourself with all of the attachments and links and needs, start very basic. Do I meet the eligibility criteria? And if you do, cool, let's move on to step 2. Is there mission alignment? And I put this as the next one because I think it's really important. Just because you're eligible for a grant doesn't mean that you have to apply or always should apply. This happens often in the nonprofit world, right? Or we start to, you might hear about mission drift, but I see it happen in the business sector as well, where we start to reach, we want money from this person, so maybe we need to modify a product slightly to meet their needs, and now maybe we want money from this person, they want us to work in this particular market, so maybe we need to shift our thinking and look only at places in this location. So not even from a very basic black and white kind of alignment, but do you believe in what they stand for, and do they believe in what you stand for? Is this a grant that's about promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Is it about sustainability? Do you align fundamentally with this organization that's giving the money? And you know, we maybe not all don't always have the luxury of being able to be choosy about where our money comes from, but I think it's really important to think about those things and prepare yourselves for what might happen on the back end as we get around to steps 4 and 5, right? So is there a mission alignment? 3, have I read all the FAQs? You can learn so much in the frequently asked questions, especially for government grants, because they are required to post questions and answers as they come in, as people submit. They're asking for clarifying things that weren't super clear in the eligibility criteria or in the requirements for the grant. So they'll collect all those questions, and at certain dates, they will post them up publicly. And Hello Alice does that too. Other grant administrators might as well. You can learn a lot from the FAQs. I highly recommend you always read them. The next thing to consider is, will the payment model work with my business plan? And I say that because many government programs are going to be reimbursement based, right? So it's, you have to provide the service or the product you're performing, and then you're submitting documentation and proof that you did those things, and then you're getting reimbursed for them. So if you don't have the cash flow to be able to do that, it's something that you need to be aware of. Same thing with foundation money. Maybe you've applied for $100,000 and you were awarded it, but they're not going to give you cut you a check for $100,000. It could come in what they call tranches or multiple disbursements, so that you might get 4 payments of $25,000. So these are all things that are really important for you to know as you're going into that grant application, to prepare yourself for whether or not you can, your business can sustain whatever that model might be. And then the last one is, are there additional reporting requirements? So think about this long term too. Understand, is this, a lot of the Hello Alice grants are you apply for $10,000, you get a check for $10,000, and that's it. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get the funding that you've requested, right? And not to say that other ways aren't the right way to do it, or that they're not, they're equally as uncumbersome, but there could be reporting requirements, especially if you've entered into a contract with a government entity, for example. You've received a grant from a federal or state agency. There could be monthly reporting requirements on data, on financials. It could be quarterly. You could have biannual narrative reports that you have to submit. So really just get into it knowing what the expectations are, so that you have the staffing to be able to support all of those things. And so these are sort of the 5 major things I would think of. If you can say, okay, yes, I'm fine with all of these things, then it's the right grant for you. But these are the ways that I think that you should sort of, the questions you consider before you get too deep down that rabbit hole. So the next most important thing after you've decided all of that, I tell everyone, this is my trick. This is what I do anytime I'm applying for a grant. I go straight to the review criteria, because if I'm going to whatever I submit, I want to know and ensure is exactly what the reviewers are looking at, and I want to know what they're looking for. So criteria, right? So here's an example. This is a notice of funding opportunity from the U.S. Department of Commerce. And you can see in the table of contents here under E, they had application review information. So I went and I clicked on review and selection process. And so for this one, you'll notice it says each criteria receives equal weight. So unfortunately, that means you're going to have to really hit every single one of these individually, or else you're going to lose points. So when you're writing your narrative, you always want to keep these things in mind and use their exact words. So, and as an example, the degree of economic distress experienced in the project community. So you want to be able to speak specifically to the degree of economic distress experienced in the named community. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's one example. Here's another one. This was from the Community Navigator Pilot Program, and a notice of funding opportunity. So when I participated in helping write one of these grants, for example, and so this one gives you points. So you might see this often, and a lot of them coming out of the SBA do. It tells you exactly the project objectives are going to be 25 points, all the way down to budget and staffing plan. It's going to be 15 points. So in this case, I want to make sure that my project objective is really on point, because I don't want to leave any points on the table. Whereas the budget and staffing plan, maybe 15 points is still significant, right? But it might be sort of on the bottom of your checklist versus really nailing the project objectives. Here's another one that you might have seen on Hello Alice, for example. So if you go down to section 7, the review or judging criteria and selection, we always list here, the reviewers are going to be checking on demonstrated need for funds to recover from the impacts of COVID-19. So when you're filling out your narrative, are you demonstrating your need for money to recover from the impacts of COVID-19? In this case, what the most heavily weighted question was related to clarity and feasibility of plan for proposed use of funds. So what are you going to do with that money? Is it clear? And this is going to weigh most heavily when we're looking at reviewing applications. And then the last one, this one is from NIH, I think, so the National Cancer Institute. This one was, let's see, section 5, application review information. So I scrolled all the way down here, and looks like there was no weighting, so probably it does say that they're going to give a separate score for each, but it's not clear which one. So this one is a bit more complicated, right? So just sort of think about that as you're going through. Does this look like something that you might be able to handle? Do you have time to submit an application like this? Because they're asking a lot of questions. Like, they want to know about you? Does the candidate have the potential to develop as an independent and productive researcher. So they want to know all about you. And then they want to know about the service that you're providing, the likelihood that your plan will contribute substantially to the scientific development. So this one is super complicated, but these criteria are what you can use to help craft your narrative statements. Great. And then after you understand the criteria and you're really ready to write, what are the things that you need? And so I tell folks, like, you should have some folders on your desktop or somewhere in your drive with some of these key things. You should always have them. So the most important one is narrative. And the way that you can get at this, right, is by applying for a grant so that you have some samples to choose from and craft and keep as templates. But I tell everyone that mission, vision, and value statements are not just for nonprofits. I think everyone should take, even for yourself, you can have a personal mission, vision, and value statement. And just go ahead and you can do that today. Start crafting those. Pull up a Word document or something somewhere, sticky notes on your wall, one for mission, vision, and value. Because that's going to be really critical when you're evaluating, like what we talked about at the beginning, sort of step 2, is their mission alignment with this particular grant opportunity. And you can pull up your own mission, vision, and values, the things that guide you and who you are, what you do, what your business stands for. Is there alignment? But then also it's really great sort of elevator pitches. Like your mission can be your elevator pitch for yourself, something that you're going to copy and paste and throw all over the place so that we know exactly what your business is, what it does, and what it stands for. And you can craft those things and hone them over time. So that one is really important. The other one is data. You should know something, anything. Numbers wow people, right? Like we had all those great numbers about GIFs and GIFs, and it was a very silly activity, but it gave us really valuable data. And like this next slide where we looked at the likelihood of someone applying for a grant or having applied for a grant or not based on the way that they pronounced GIF or GIF. It's silly, but it would pop. It's meaningful. It's impactful. So a good example is like for Hello Alice. We know that the biggest challenge right now for small business owners is raising capital or finding loans. So I'm able to make that connection, right? I know that what is that? 36% of Hello Atlas users rate raising capital or finding loans is their biggest challenge right now. So in order to meet that need, we have developed these webinars and tools to help them access capital and find loans. Right. So those are really important ways that you demonstrate that you know your business in and out, you know your customers, and you know how to link those to your key goals. The next one is budget. So you should always keep a budget template handy, and I recommend $24. I recommend you consider having them in your fringe benefits. So that means your healthcare and benefit costs, travel, equipment, supplies, contracts, construction, other. So you delete ones you don't need, keep the ones you do. But this is a very simple sort of starting point as a budget tool to be able to use and organize yourself. And then the last one that I say is staff. Make sure you have a folder of resumes and bios of your key staff, because funders want to know about the experience of your team. They want to know that they're giving money to a group of folks who can really sustain this business, who know what they're doing. And they're always going to ask you about who's your right-hand person, your left-hand person, who's in charge of X and Y. And so if you have those bios and resumes handy, all you have to do is just turn around or send a link to a folder and you have it right there. So my final thoughts on this are, when we're thinking about organized, is really thinking a little bit backwards. So this is sort of like a modified logic model. So think about your goals. You've established your mission, vision, and values. What are your goals as a business owner? What specific activities do you need to accomplish to get to those goals? And what resources do you need to accomplish those activities? So pull up some sticky notes, have a single goal. What are the activities related to that goal? and what are the resources that you need in order to accomplish those activities. And those sticky notes become your grant application, right? So now I know that I need $10,000 to purchase this machine so that I can ramp up production of this particular product of mine by this date so that I can accomplish this goal. And now you have a very clear and consistent line for a grant reviewer to go in, read that question. You've hit all of your criteria. I have a very clear understanding of why you need this money to achieve this goal for your business. And I'm going to choose you when I'm selecting my recipients. Oh man. So I think I will say one last thing, which is sort of in sum, what I think I want you to walk away with from here is to be disciplined. So just we're talking about goals, activities, resources that you need. Be very disciplined. It's very easy in this world. You're all incredible, capable, amazing humans with bright and brilliant ideas. And it's easy to follow all those squirrels, right? I do it all the time. I have so many great ideas. Well, I think they're great. The things that I want to do, but you can't stretch yourself so thin because you're not going to be able to be successful fully, or you could be a superhuman. Maybe you're able to do all of the things. I would venture to guess that you've probably let your own health and well-being fall to the wayside if you're someone that does that. But it's really important to be disciplined because it's going to come through in your grant application. And I'm really going to want to be able to see clearly thought out this idea. I need these resources to accomplish these things for this particular goal. And so that gets into the organization piece, right? So if you're able to keep yourself organized in all those different pieces, have some of these folders just ready to go, some of those 4 things that I talked about that every grant application is going to ask you for, it allows you to be disciplined. And then accuracy. Maybe it sounds silly to say, but you should always be double checking, reading again, have someone else read for you, because it's very easy for us to see what we want to see or see what we said in our brains. I do it all the time. There's also, I was going to put up this funny, there's a study that demonstrates that as long as for English speakers, at least, if there's a word that starts and ends with its letter, like horse starts with H, ends in E, if you mix up the O-R-S in the middle, our brain still sees horse. So I say that because you're writing out this whole narrative, you have this idea, maybe you don't have a lot of time, and you might have made a ton of typos. And not to say that a typo is going to get you disqualified, but I think it's really important to let someone else read it for you, because they can also not only catch those grammatical mistakes, but they're going to ask questions, and that's okay. It's okay if they have questions, because they're meant to help make you better, make your business better, help you to understand how to communicate what's in your head to someone else on paper. And it's really important. Don't give us, grant reviewers, any excuse to deny your application, right? Make sure your phone number is correct, that your email address is there, that your tax ID is there appropriately, that you've selected yes to all if you agree to them, like agreeing to the terms and conditions, agreeing to share your application. Really make sure that you or someone else is going through to do that, because make my job so hard. Make sure that I have 10,000 applications that are all eligible to review, and don't let me disqualify you just because of a mistake like that.